Hello, my name is Adolfo and this is Life of Adolfo. Today, I'm going to cover a story I saw 2 weeks ago when the United States said that they were going to start deporting immigrants to Mexico. And to counter that, Mexico said that they were not going to accept immigrants. At that point, I did not understand the whole detail. I didn't understand on the immigrant situation, but then I found out it was kind of pinpointed to Venezuela. And the reason I say that is because on TikTok, I watched this video of this lady. I forgot her name, her title TikTok, but I'm gonna put it right here. So if you wanna go follow her, you can follow her. And she had to say this.
They don't want them. Venezuela is not accepting immigrants to be deported to Venezuela. And unless someone from Venezuela commits a crime, they cannot be deported to Venezuela because Maduro has said he's not taking them back.
And at that point, she's saying that Venezuela is not even accepting their own immigrants that left the country to the United States. And all of this is because the United States decided to put sanctions or maintain some sanctions to Venezuela. So Venezuela is not allowing these immigrants. And I know in the United States, people are talking about the squatter situation with this individual talking of the plans that he's trying to do. And as the lady said that's not a crime. He's just talking. So Venezuela is not accepting the immigrants. And to piggyback, like I mentioned, they're not accepting them from Mexico as well. And I don't know why Mexico was included, since I don't know if Mexico has some sanctions on Venezuela, but I do know that they're trying to prevent the flow coming in. And for people that don't know, I know a lot of people watch the news in the US, but they don't know the whole background story or if Mexico is helping, because they just see the immigrants going to the border and they're blaming Mexico when there's multiple borders that they had to cross. And this is one thing that I did not know until I was in Colombia. I met somebody from Venezuela. They say, oh, my husband is trying to cross all the way to the United States. And he got stuck like in Costa Rica. Not everybody's trying to could make it because there's borders and there's obstacles trying to go to the United States. Especially there's a jungle or a forest called Dorian. And you talk to any Venezuelan, they'll tell you the Dorian jungle, because there's no road from Colombia to pass all the way to Panama because that forest is right there. And they get robbed. There's no road or nothing. Now, why do I say that Mexico is trying to prevent the flow also, but we don't see it as Americans, is that for people to fly to Mexico, you have to meet certain criteria. And those criteria, since the flow of immigrants has pushed up on how much money you have to have in the bank, how much money you're supposed to be making, that if you're going to be crossing and you're making so much X amount of money, is it worth it when you're living a good lifestyle in Venezuela? And those are the people that are only accepted arriving to Mexico via a flight. And I know Americans don't see this and they just want to complain and cry about it. But you have to look at what has changed and what you're listening to and what's actually happening. Now, for the immigrants that came from Venezuela, we already know most of them are saying that they're refugees. The last time that I remember that there was a refugee of this magnitude was when the Mariel boats came from Cuba to Florida. And on that story, if you've seen Graciela, you'll know that she even talks about it on her Netflix movie. And that's how the people that she got to help her rise to the position that she was in. But that happened in the 1980s. I'm not gonna say that was one of the downfalls of Jimmy Carter. That and the Iran conflict with the hostages, gas prices, and so many areas that helped Ronald Reagan. But this video is not about political. This is on the last refugees that came to the United States. But On that time, the Cubans were protesting. I believe it was in the Peruvian embassy. At that time, Fidel decided to let anybody they wanted to go leave. And they got on the boats and they went to Florida. But he also, according to the story, he let prisoners leave and they all went to Florida. Same thing probably happened in Venezuela. I'm not saying if it happened or not, but we'll assume that it did. And they let people that are not only struggling and asking for asylum, but also people that they just wanted to let go from the country. And maybe that's how they got in the vans and so on. But we are accusing certain people of certain things without knowing the whole history. As for me, knowing me as an American, I think that it's wrong what is being done, that they're coming. Me knowing the history in Venezuela with the embargoes and knowing the history of what happened in Central America before and knowing the history of Cuba, I understand why they're doing it. And the lady continues to talk.
U.S. cannot ship them back to Venezuela. And although there's a lot of migrants from Venezuela that are here, that are honest, hardworking people who want to better their future here in the United States, there's also a lot of criminals who have infiltrated this nation, and now the USA is stuck with them. Because unless they have committed a crime, they cannot be sent back to Venezuela.
And as you can see, the lady did say that there's criminals, there's people that came in with bad intentions, and now the United States is stuck with them. And I'm gonna be honest, I met someone from Venezuela that was trying to also cross to the United States. And I'm not gonna lie, her mindset was come to the country because they help, they provide certain services, which I kind of disagree, because even though my dad and my mom were immigrants, they did not take that path. They came to work instead of trying to get free stuff in the United States. At the same time, I cannot hate because my parents also came illegally, but the mindset was different compared to some people's mindset. They come over here and they know that if they come with asylum. It could be Cuban, it could be Venezuelan, it could be anybody with asylum, and they know the laws and they rather take that path, the easy path, instead of working. And she continues to talk.
Because unless they have committed a crime, they cannot be sent back to Venezuela. And what happens now that all these criminals have left Venezuela? Their crime rate has gone down. Can Maduro do this? Refuse his own people? Apparently so. Now here's the process that most migrants from Venezuela have to go through. Enter the U.S. by the Mexico border, file petition for political asylum, and then a lot of them are given a court date. If they miss that court date, ICE is going to go after them. But what is the point of ICE going after them if they can't be sent back? They also cannot be arrested and put into prisons because they have not committed a crime. And yes, you're going to say they committed a crime because they crossed our border. That's not a crime because they're here and they're eligible for political asylum. So what happens now for all those immigrants that are here to stay? Because you may suggest send them back every day and twice on Sunday. Maduro doesn't want them back.
And as you can see right there what the lady said, they have to have a court date, but even if they miss it, they can't be deported because they're not being accepted. And they haven't committed a crime. I did look at the asylum law in the United States, and it said that as an asylum may not be deported, but the government may terminate an asylum status as an asylee if certain grounds exist. But if there hasn't been a crime, you can't be deported. And the reason for that is because Venezuela is not accepting them. And Mexico already said they're not accepting them as well. And I know people are going to be mad for this happening, but it's like playing chess against another country. At the same time, I did look at the status of people that got deported, and it said about 1,800 Venezuelans on 15 flights over 4 months got deported, but that got a halt because of the sanctions, and now that Venezuela is not accepting them. But then I looked at the TikTok around the comments, and some people, yes, they were mad on what the law is, but there are also people saying deport them to other countries nearby. Well, they're not, a Venezuelan is not a Colombian. A Venezuelan is not a Brazilian. Those countries are not going to accept them because they're not citizens of that country. And even though they're not the citizens of the countries that I've been to Colombia, there's a lot of Venezuelans in Colombia. They're everywhere in Colombia. And the reason for that is that their border is not like going from Mexico to the United States. It's not like that. It's the opposite. It's going from the United States to Mexico, where everybody's granted access, and the immigration doesn't check your passport like they do when you're going from Mexico to the United States. In my opinion, it's hard to give you an answer for this one because laws are laws. I cannot say this law should be covered when other laws are not being covered. As for the squatting, because this incident, I kind of heard it with the squatting, with the New York incidents or things that are happening in New York. If they're convicted of a crime and they're not being accepted, I don't know the answer for that. I really don't know the answer. I just wanted to cover this. Thank you. Thank you for watching.